And we are, I'm assuming that we're recording. I hit start record. You're recording.
Yes.
It says it now. Good. All right, so you're recording this meeting, and be sure to let everyone know that they are being recorded so I can dismiss this message. And you all are aware of the fact that we're being recorded. Okay. Um, Now, I did check with Ronald Roundtree, and he said that he is able to see the presentation. Are you guys able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Now,
Yes.
I'm hoping that I think I did what I was supposed to do in order to make sure that we had sound. And that was one of the issues, but I think we got the bugs worked out. Andrew Forbes and we got on here the other day, and I believe we worked all the bugs out. So hopefully you will be able to hear the sound and be able to participate. And I can hear everyone as you communicate, and we are really looking forward to the interaction. I think the interaction is going to be awesome. Looks like we have a multi-ethnic group that's all here. I see everybody represented, so therefore, I think it's going to be a good talk session. And Andrew Forbes and I will facilitate this. This is part of the IPASS workshop, which is Intercultural Principles Accelerating Student Success. That's what that stands for. I pass my classes because our overall goal is to help individuals to that are black and brown males to increase the student retention, increase their retention, and um, actually help them to move on to greater things and accomplish greater things in the community. So basically, I'm just going to read uh, the um, the statement concerning what this class is about, just so that you'll have a very clear understanding of what it is, and hopefully we'll be able to progress. I'm going to start out, and Andrew Forbes will take over a little bit later on, but he will also be inserting commentary as we facilitate this. But again, like I say, we don't want you to hold your commentary back. We would like you to communicate. And if you're not supposed to communicate at the time you communicate, I will just mute you. That's what I will do. I always tell my students if they mess up, I will flunk them. I just joke with them, but I won't be flunking any of you, but I will mute you if I have to. No, I'm kidding. We want you to interact, and we want you to really make this complete. I'm not sure how long it's going to take. I really don't know if this is going to go 2 hours. I can guarantee it won't go over 2 hours, but it may be shorter than 2 hours. But I don't know. With this long introduction, it may go 2 hours. All right. So basically, the image of successful Black and Latino males in society and academia has been made to fit a paradigm that is outdated. That's an assumption that we take as we do this presentation. And so the question is really, does higher education bring about and make successful men of color? In other words, is it actually a paradigm that will allow for the success of African American males and Latino males predominantly? And that's what we're going to look at. I'm just going to read this statement. The moment Black and Latino males enter a higher education institution, they may be deemed as inferior, not only in words, but in overt behavior. Today's social climate has given even more leeway toward the stereotypical notations of Black and Latino males. And it's interesting because when I wrote this, there were things that were going on in our country. When I wrote this description, and actually, I can't take credit for this. Actually, Mr. Andrew Forbes wrote this because we did a presentation at Black Brown College Bound, and this is just an adaptation of the statement that he had written. And there were some disruptions that were going on in our social climate, but all of you are very well aware that 2020 has been an interesting beast. It has been an interesting year. It really has. And because of that, we see that uh, this is an understatement. In my view, this is an understatement. But there are a lot of stereotypical notations of Black and Latino males. And what's really interesting is, I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to interact with various people that you may have graduated with on Facebook and in social media. And I grew up in Oklahoma, a little place called Shawnee, Oklahoma, which is 30 miles east of Oklahoma City. And I would interact with various people, students that I graduated with, and also teachers. In fact, one specific teacher that really said something to me that impacted me very positively, that really kind of helped me to see myself in a better light. But when I look at that person now, I have an interesting perspective of that person. Love them, but an interesting perspective concerning their positions. But anyway, like I said, these statements, this is somewhat of an understatement concerning what's going on in the climate now, because a lot of people's colors have been shown. They're clearly seen. But anyway, this presentation will allow participants to identify the potential covert and overt barriers and stereotypes that exist in higher education. So we are assuming that there are some barriers. We are assuming that the paradigm itself has problems. But our overall goal and what we assume is that with the knowledge of what those barriers may be, and also with self-knowledge and self-understanding, then we can be agents of change that can help things become better, that can actually help individuals achieve the success that really they're attempting to accomplish by matriculating into institutions of higher education as people of color. So our overall goal is to create new narratives. But I believe in order to create new narratives, in order to do that, then we believe that we have to understand the narratives that already shape us. And then, therefore, we're able to engage the new narrative or come up with a strategy by which we can impose that narrative. So let's progress. Let's move forward. Now, as we move forward, you've heard me talk about narratives quite a bit. And I just want to give a little attention to the concept of a narrative. Um, an individual by the name of Walter Fisher actually started back in around 83. And he is also did a seminal work in 1987 concerning narrative rationality. And one of the things in his paradigm, he began to describe that there's a contrast, or he describes the contrast of identifying the tenets of what he sees as two universal paradigms, the rational world paradigm and then the narrative paradigm. And he makes the argument under the rational world paradigm that people are essentially rational. He says that we make decisions based off of arguments. He says that the communicative situation determines the course of our argument. In other words, the way we interact with the situation and how we communicate the nature of what surrounds us begins to help us to figure out how we make an argument. And then he says rationality is determined by how much we know and then how well we argue, what makes sense. So therefore, he's saying that the world is set or is a set of logical puzzles, and we solve those puzzles through rational analysis. Now, here comes the narrative paradigm. And this is what I really want us to more pay attention to. And I'm trying to silence my phone. It keeps making all kinds of noise. Okay, there we go. So number one, people are essentially storytellers. We tell stories. In fact, when I have my students, my speech students, one of the things that I tell them is that there is so much power in a story. I've had individuals get up and talk about history, and they only mention dates and facts, and that is so boring. But the best thing to do is to tell a story. But telling a story has power. When you create a narrative, when you create a story about what's going on, it has power over individuals. And so therefore, his second tenet in this theory says that people make decisions based on good reasons. So we're storytellers, but then also we're rational. Now, when we look at how we make and what kinds of stories, then those stories deal with history, biography, culture. In fact, to be honest, stories create culture. Stories is what actually help create culture. I'm sure you're familiar with shamans and how that the shaman will tell the story, and within it are certain values, and those values begin to shape the behavior and the destiny that individuals tend to take. So therefore, history, biography, culture, character, they determine what we consider good reasons. In other words, the way of the folk. Basically, this is how we do things here. Someone comes in, and the way that they're assimilated is you socialize them. How do you socialize them? You tell them the story of how we do things here. In fact, around a business table where individuals are making decisions, usually you'll have someone that will tell the story. And when they tell the story, then individuals begin to make a decision. And I saw this firsthand in building a church. You know, many of you know my background being connected with churches. And I was a young man at 20 something years old when I took my first church, 25 years old. And I remember sitting at the table with all of these older men. And there was an older man by I'm not going to say his name, but anyway, he was around 62, somewhere in that age. And he would always say, now y'all remember, and then he would tell a story. And by the end of the story, everybody was on his side. And I would be frustrated because I'm trying to, create a new vision and create a new direction. But he's telling those old stories. And as a result of telling his stories, then individuals, if it seemed to be rational and make sense, then they made their decisions based off of those. So narrative rationality is determined by the coherence and the fidelity of our stories to some extent. And then also he made the argument that the world is a set of stories from which we choose and constantly recreate our lives. So our lives are based on the stories that we've heard. Who I am is based on the stories. I can tell you the story of this teacher who happens to be Caucasian and me in the early 70s. Somehow being invited over this teacher's house. I can't remember ever being invited over any teacher's house, but I was invited over this teacher's house who had two daughters, one my age and one a year younger than me. And as I was there, she had a piano in the front room. And I have a piano. We had a piano growing up in the back area, and I would go and play it. And I never took lessons, but I picked it up by just playing it. I could play it by ear. And I remember sitting down at her piano, and I started playing that piano. And as I started playing that piano, she came up and sat on the side of me, and she looked at my fingers. And, number one, I'm in her house. Again, it's the 70s. And she sits on the side of me and she tells me how talented I am. And she looks at my fingers and tells me that I'm going to do something great in life. And she doesn't know that she impacted, well, she knows because I've told her since then. I told her that I think a lot of my self-esteem and a lot of my drive came from that esteem builder. That was, in fact, to be honest, her daughter was the first date that I actually went on. And so to see somebody that was not a person of color to treat me in a certain way, like it had an impact on me. It really did. So that's a story. That's part of my narrative that would help me to be who I am. Now, one of the things and the reason that we're talking about this is because we're concerned with success. We're concerned with helping students be successful. Now, what is success? Well, it's the achievement of something desired, it's the achievement of something planned, it's the achievement of something that one attempts. And that comes from Roget's thesaurus. And basically, the illustration that they list there is his efforts to become America's first African American president ended in success. So we're assuming that that must be talking about Obama because he actually became the first African American president. So success is when you actually accomplish what it is that you are trying, that you desire, that you plan for. So when it comes to success, then one of the things I want to do with you guys, and you guys are going to have to chime in. And I'm not sure how to see you guys again. I'm not sure how to do that because the only thing I can see is my presentation. But I want to play a success game. So you guys have to take off. You guys have to unmute and you have to get involved. But we're going to play success. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to minimize success to one particular characteristic. And the characteristic that we're going to minimize success to happens to be how much money you have. Now, I know that success is not necessarily measured by how much money you have. It's not determined about the size of your bank account, at least in the view of a lot of people. But some people may say, well, yes, that's exactly what success is, about how much financial power you have. Well, I don't know. But anyway, but we're going to use that as a measure. We really are. And what I'm going to do is I want to show you some pictures. And as I show you these pictures, I want you to share with me information about who it is that you see. And I'm going to ask you another question about them. So let me make sure I'm getting feedback. Are you all there?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes.
Great, great. All right. So I'm not talking to myself. Okay, so the first person we're going to look at, someone tell me, who is that person?
Jay-Z.
Somebody right offhand. You
Sean
listen to
Carter.
that.
Sean
Say what?
Sean Carter.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. So we have some rap fans up in here.
Absolutely.
We have some rap fans in here.
Hip-hop.
Okay. So this is Sean Carter. Now, the reason that I put him up, because you remember we're playing the success game, right? Would you consider him successful?
Yes.
If we're using money as the benchmark, yes.
Okay, if you're using money as a benchmark, then yeah, we would say that he's successful. He looks successful, sitting there with his pink suit and drinking his champagne and all of that. He just looks. Look at his smile. That's a success smile, isn't it? That's a success smile right there. He said, "I'm living the life." All right, so
Dr. James, if I can interject for a brief moment.
Okay.
Because this picture is close to me in some way, shape, or form. Because number one, Sean Carter and I, we actually grew up in New York, not too far from each other. Even though there's an age gap, he grew up in I don't know if everyone knows the Marcy Projects in Bushwick, New York. and I was basically on the other side of Brooklyn, New York, in Flatbush. And for him to achieve the level of success that he has, and there are questions surrounding it, but the beginning point of his life to where he is now, his success, I think in some way, shape, or form, can't be denied. Because let's just assume people from New York, people from Brooklyn, people from that particular area will understand that, yes, he is one of very few people who's actually made it in their eyes, while other individuals may disagree. And that's a perfectly good point. So I
Okay.
just want to interject.
Now this guy, and I appreciate the information that Mr. Forbes is giving, because we're going to go a little farther in this. But he's worth $1 billion, according to 2020. That was in what was the article is I'll tell you, Business Insider. So on Business Insider, he is actually worth $1 billion in this last year. Now let me ask you a question. Here's the guessing game. Is he a college graduate?
No.
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Don't know.
Okay. So a lot don't know. Someone actually says no. And I can't see you. So who is that? Just out of
It's
curiosity.
Dorothy. It's Dorothy McCalla.
Okay.
Good morning. Good morning.
Dorothy, were
Good
you the
morning.
one that identified him as Sean Carter, or was that
Yes, that's me. Yes, sir.
Okay,
That's me.
okay. I was just wondering. I was curious.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was Lisa, because I can't see. I can't see. But he's worth $1 billion. But let's look at this. Andrew mentioned about where he's from. So along with rapper AZ, he attended Eli Whitney High School in Brooklyn until it was closed. He then attended George Westinghouse Career and Technical Education High School with the Notorious B.I.G. For some of you that may not know, he was evidently a very well-known rapper on the East Coast that actually was killed. Then you had Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes is an old school rapper, followed by a stint with Trenton Central High School. So he went there in Trenton, New Jersey, but he didn't graduate. He's a high school dropout. That's what he is, a high school dropout. And according to his lyrics, it says that he sold crack cocaine and he was shot 3 times during this period. But yet, if we were to look at him monetarily and influentially, I'm going to use the word influentially, you see him as a person of influence, and you would say that he has some degree of success. Would you all agree with that?
Yes.
But let me,
Sure. In his
Okay.
own way.
yeah. Now, one of the things that Andrew had mentioned is he said he kind of grew up in Brooklyn, and wait a minute. What did I do? Okay. All right. I don't want to get ahead of myself. But anyway, I'm kind of curious what kind of school environment he had. Wouldn't you kind of wonder, what was that educational for him to drop out? What was the educational environment he has? Well, we get a little look into it. Notice it says that he went to a school where the Notorious B.I.G. actually attended. And so because of a certain scene that we have from Biggie, what they would call him, his in his movie, I just want you to look at this and notice how Sean Carter may have interacted with his teachers and how his teachers may have interacted with him. So just watch this. Let's see if we can do this. Can you hear it? Do y'all hear it?
Yes.
Yes.
Andrew, this is your environment.
It is. I'm homesick now.
Add 3x to the other side. Now, we need to solve the problem for x. Who wants to come up and do that? Come on up, Mr. Wallace.
7x equals 84, and 12 equals x.
Impressive. You're actually smarter than you look.
Mr. Weber, yesterday you said I was going to end up a garbage man.
That's right. If you keep cutting class, it's exactly what you'll become.
But I found out a teacher makes $24,000 a year, and a garbage man makes $28,000 a year. I'm gonna make $4,000 more than his dumb ass.
Get out.
Ooh, wow.
Get out of my class.
So when you look at that, number one, that may have been Jay-Z's environment as far as education is concerned. He was a dropout. He actually went to that same school, according to what we were able to read and find out. All right. So now we're going to move on to the next person. You remember that. Now here's the next person. Who is that?
Tyler Perry.
Tyler Perry. All right. Who said that?
Yes. Hi.
Who is that? Jessica.
Hi.
Okay, you're wrong. No, I'm playing. That's right. That's the right answer.
No, it is.
That's Tyler Perry. He's actually probably wearing a suit that my first cousin made. My first cousin is actually his tailor, believe it or not. But anyway, Tyler Perry is a very interesting individual. And let me ask you the question. Did Tyler Perry go to college?
Seems like it.
I have no
Okay,
idea.
So most of you say he did, or what do you say?
I
I don't
say
know.
Okay. All right. So let's look at him. He is worth 1 billion, according to the same source that I looked at. He's worth $1 billion, but he didn't complete high school. He only earned a GED. Wow. Isn't that interesting? He didn't complete high school. In fact, his story is very interesting. But one thing I want you to notice is this. He did receive an honorary doctorate degree from Tuskegee University. All right. But I want you to listen to his narrative. I want you to listen to him tell his story. So listen to him as he communicates his narrative. Let's see if we can do that.
Dr. J.
Dr. J, for some
J.
reason, I can't hear.
I think we're seeing Andrew's screen right now.
Wait,
Andrew,
you said
did you
what?
accidentally hit the
We
share?
can't see. We can't hear the narrative or see it. People can see me.
Okay, now I didn't change anything. So did you
Maybe,
push
Andrew,
anything?
you need to
No,
stop
I didn't
sharing.
touch anything.
I didn't
Andrew
do it.
must have pushed share.
maybe X. You see that square with the X on top? Maybe X that and see what happens. To the left of leave.
Okay, did he stop sharing?
He need to move.
Okay, let me go in and see if I can fix whatever it is. Okay, Andrew, did you push any of the buttons? Yeah, you're sharing.
No, I didn't. Oh, I didn't touch anything.
I'm looking at you, your screen. You have the X at the top in the box. See where it says leave? And then
Yes.
right next to it, you got an X in there. That's because you're sharing.
No,
Huh?
Click it off.
Click it off. There you go. Click that off. Yeah, click that. Is it not letting you click it?
no, I don't see the X.
You're touching it.
No,
No,
actually,
not
I
that.
think I think you see, yeah, because this is Dorothy, and I see you, Dr. J, and I see Andrew, but I don't see anything else. I don't know what
Well,
happened.
that's because I have us highlighted.
Oh,
But
okay.
because see the X in his square, not that one, Eric. That one, Eric. That one. You can't. It won't touch. You can't
No,
stop
no,
it
I
from
can't.
sharing. Okay, let me
See,
see if I can
it,
override your control. I'm going to see. Okay, I see where you took control from me. Now I just took it back from you.
Okay, I didn't even.
I think I
Oh.
did that, Dr. J. Sorry. I think I did
Oh.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry
Okay.
about that. Mhm.
So he still got control. Let me see if I can do the share now. And I'm gonna go back to it.
Oh, something happened. There you go.
So you see
Yeah.
it?
It's
Oh,
working
wait.
now.
Yes.
I
Yay.
see Tyler
Yay.
Perry and the Rose.
Okay, yeah, but you know what? There's another problem. I
don't-
forgot
Mhm.
to share the volume to you. So
Okay.
why when I click the X, my X disappears, but Andrew's didn't. But anyway, let me try sharing again.
I think when you set up the meeting, you may have allowed everybody else to share
control.
the controls as opposed to only allowing you to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna make sure I take that off right now.
Yeah.
Let me do that before we go farther. So I'm going to, let me see, I'm gonna hide the share. I'm gonna open up the more actions, meeting options, and let's see, let people announce when joiners who can present. Everyone. No, you guys cannot present, only me right now. And then, and Andrew, so we're good. Let me save that. Okay, there we go. All right, so now let's go back and, all right, I'm in control. All right, so let's see, let's go to the computer sound. And we're going to go back to the rewriting narratives. And are y'all ready?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I think we got this. All right, so we're going to go back to Tyler Perry. And here we go. You should hear it this time.
I ended up homeless. I ended up out on the street with no money and nothing to my name.
Can you hear it?
My intention was just to make enough money to be able to take care of my mother. That's all I wanted to do. That was my goal. I had written my first play. It was called I Know I've Been Changed. I put the show up, working, used car, bill collector, H&R Block tax return that wasn't quite right, but I got my money out of it. I thought 1,200 people would show up that weekend, but only 30 showed up. My car payment, rent, everything was tied up in this. But I knew that that is what I was supposed to be doing. I knew that I was on a good foundation. When I was growing up, my father was a carpenter. He would take me to work with him. And in the summertime, it was really hot, and I'd be out there with him, and he'd be building these houses. And the part that I hated most about this was when we had to put in the foundation. It was painstaking, digging these holes. Then you had to tie the steel, and after all that work was done, you just poured concrete over it. And here's the thing, nobody ever saw it. All that work was done, and nobody ever saw it. No one ever cared about the foundation. The only time you hear someone talk about the foundation is when a house is falling apart. But when the foundation is done right, nobody mentions it. And when it's done right, it can carry the weight of anything that it was designed to hold. What you were building had to be strong enough to support the weight of whatever you could dream. And if you're like me, you are a huge dreamer. You had to have a foundation that is big enough and strong enough and bold enough to hold all of your dreams and handle them coming true. I need to warn you, it takes a while to build a dream. When you get out there in the world, I want you to remember something. What's in the well will come up in the bucket. So today I want to challenge you to know your intention as to why you do what you do. And I promise you, if your intention is right, you will be successful. But let me warn you what will happen when you're successful, because I don't want you to get out there and get caught off guard. At first, you're going to be celebrated. But when your success surpasses what your peers expect of you, then you will become a target. So now that you have set your intention, now that you have your foundation, let's talk about how to stay on course when the attacks come. As an artist, this is the art that I want to paint. Just as I will never do it, don't you ever change one brushstroke on your canvas because somebody doesn't like what you paint. You have the foundation. Know your intention. Know that it's not going to be easy, but just keep yourself on track. Know the value of what is already down in your well. I ended up homeless. I ended up out on the street with no money.
Again, but anyway, so he evidently the first one didn't have hasn't been to college, didn't even have a high school diploma. Second one got a GED, but later in life, after his success, he actually received an honorary doctorate from a historically Black college or university. Now, who is this guy?
That's Kanye.
That's Kanye. That's Kanye. Okay.
Kanye West.
That's Kanye West. Now, Kanye, what do you guys know about his education? Anybody?
Very little.
I know his early albums were titled something about education, but I think it was more,
I think
life
his first
education.
one, right? Yeah. College dropout. So I guess
dropout.
that's part of his narrative there. That was right. So I assume then, that's what he was, or that's what he is.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. Now he's worth 1.3 billion. All right, but he quit college when he was 20. Calling his first album "College Dropout." Now his mom was actually a professor. It says that I think later on, if you were looking the dialogue that I put here, she even says, let's see, he greatly displeased his mother, who was a professor at a university. And she later commented, "It was drummed into my head that college was the ticket to a good life, but some career goals don't require college," is what she said. But anyway, when you look at him, you would probably say he has some degree of success, even though he's a college dropout. So far, it seems that none of the people that we've looked at has made it through college for some reason. And that's interesting. Some never even attempted it, but evidently he did. Now, later, he was given an honorary degree. That was after all of his success, from actually the college that he wanted to go to anyway. And so he was given that honorary degree, but I guess it was because he was already successful. So therefore going through the process was not something that he did, okay? But think about his narrative. Think about the narrative of all these guys that we see so far. And now tell me who this is.
Michael Jordan.
MJ.
I was thinking I'd hear everybody's voice all at once is what I would think, Yeah. Michael Jordan, that's who it is. Now y'all tell me, what about his education?
University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, am I right?
That's right, but he did not graduate. He didn't graduate.
He did.
Oh, so wait a minute, he didn't graduate.
And he got drafted?
$1.6 million.
So he went back. Yeah, he had to go back. I went to North Carolina. So I knew that he had not graduated. He left to the NBA early.
That's right. He left for the NBA, and then afterward he came back and he actually completed his degree in geography, and he created an anomaly in the statistics about how much geography majors make in life, because I remember I used to use that when I talked about statistics to my students, and I was talking about how you have outliers, outliers, and so he was an outlier, definitely. even though he had a geography degree, he didn't make his money from that particular area, but yet was included in the statistics. But anyway, I think you guys have an idea of his narrative to some extent. All right, next person. Oh, and by the way, there's his degree. There's his degree. Okay. So now, who's this?
Who is that? I don't know. I don't know who that is.
Everybody stumped. Everybody stumped on this one. This guy right here. Let me go ahead. Would you say that you guys think he has an education or what?
I don't want to get.
He looked educated.
I think
he looks educated.
Yeah, I think that was Dr. Chill, wasn't he? He said he looks educated.
I'm getting a lawyer vibe.
He has lawyer's eyes? Okay.
Getting lawyer vibe, yeah.
Well, this guy's name is David Stewart, and he's worth $3.7 billion. Okay. And he has a bachelor's degree. He has a bachelor's degree. He received his bachelor's degree in business. And, you know, this guy is into technology. That's where he's made his billions of dollars, just in technology. And he's expanded himself in all kinds of different areas. Now, so he's made some degree of success, and he was able to navigate the college system to some extent because he does have a bachelor's degree. Now, you see, he didn't go beyond that, but he was able to navigate that system. All right, now, who is this guy? Okay, I see total silence again. So let me tell you, he is the richest Black man in the United States. He is worth $5.2 billion, 58 years old, and according to Forbes, $5 billion. He has an education. I should have asked you, but he has an education from Columbia Business School, from Cornell University, and he has a BS in chemical engineering from Cornell. He has an MBA in finance and marketing from Columbia Business School. He is an investor. That's what he's done. He's invested money, and as a result has done it very successfully. So I'm sure everybody here would say he has some degree of success, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
but let's look at his narrative. I just want to look at his narrative, and I want you to glean what you think that his narrative says to him by watching this next video.
Men of Morehouse, you are surrounded by a community of people who have helped you arrive at this sacred place and on this sacred day. On behalf of the 8 generations of my family who have been in this country, we're going to put a little fuel in your bus. Now, I've got the alumni over there, and this is a challenge to you alumni. This is my class, 2019. And my family is making a grant to eliminate their student loans. Now, I know my class will make sure they pay this forward. And I want my class to look at these alumnus, these beautiful Morehouse brothers, and let's make sure every class has the same opportunity going forward. Because we are enough to take care of our own community. We are enough to ensure we have all the opportunities of the American dream. And we will show it to each other through our actions and through our words and through our deeds. So class of 2019, may the sun always shine upon you. May the wind always be at your back. And may God always hold you in the cradle of her hands. Congratulations.
So this individual actually paid off all the student loans of all of the minority males of the class of 2019 at Morehouse. So you hear his words, and you're able to hear that evidently he has a narrative as an African-American male. Now, this is the thing that I want you to notice and I want you to think about. What I did is I shared with you all of the African-American billionaires in the United States. There are 7 African-American billionaires in the United States. 6 of them are male. I guess you could probably guess who the female African-American billionaire is. Who is that?
Oprah.
Oprah.
That's right, Oprah Winfrey. And Oprah Winfrey is more wealthy than all of them, actually. But 6 of them are male. 6 of the 7 are male. But here's the thing. I want you to think about proportions. There are 614 billionaires in the United States. Only 7 of them are Black and 6 of them are male. 6 out of 614. 2 out of 6 of them are high school dropouts. 3 of them never finished college at all. 2 of them received honorary doctorate degrees after they had already become successful. 1 of them earned their bachelor's after their success, Michael Jordan. 1 of them obtained a bachelor's, and 1 of the 6 obtained his undergraduate degree. So when we look at it, in their narrative, what is their narrative? What does the narrative say about education? What does the narrative say about higher education? And what does it say to the African-American male and also the Hispanic male that begins to look for individuals who are role models in order to navigate the particular system? In other words, it's the stories of success that creates the narrative of who we are and the direction that we follow and what we believe we should do in order to become successful. But when we look at these individuals, then some individuals would say, well, I don't see it essential to my success. And therefore, when they get in the system itself, then they experience things that might make things appear more difficult or make it more difficult for them. Now, I want you to notice some statistics at Eastern Florida State College. These statistics were provided to me by Bob Stover, and he actually shared these statistics on another workshop that we just did last semester. So they're pretty much fresh statistics from the semester before. But basically, when you look at our percentage of white students, which is 65%, Hispanic students, we have 14.8%, Black students, we have 2.2%, and then other students, 7.7%. That makes up 100% of our population. Of the white students, 69% of them graduate with AAs. 73% of them graduate with an AS or an AAS. 68% certificates, and then 75% of them actually go on and get their bachelor's degree. When we look at the Hispanic population, the numbers are very different. Of the 14%, 14.8, I'm gonna just say 15% that are there, only 14% of them receive AAs. only 12% of that 14% ASs. Certifications, 13.6. Bachelor's degrees, only 12% of that 14.8% receive bachelor's. What about African American? 12.2% of our students are of ethnicity of Black. AAs, only 8%, 8.5%. AS is only 10.8%. Certifications, 10.8%. And bachelor's degrees, only 8% of that 12 receive bachelor's degrees. Others, we only have 7.7%. Now, 8% of them, AAs, 6.4. You see the numbers, all the way to the bachelor's, 3.8%. When you look at proportions, then we have to ask the question, what's going on? What's happening? Why is it that the numbers fall off so significantly, especially when you begin to look at people of color? And you have to ask the question, does our system actually encourage minorities to excel and to succeed? Now let's look at something else. This has to do with those who are full-time faculty in relation to the groups. When you look at the Hispanic students, which are 14.8, if you were to look at the number, the Hispanics, those numbers are consistent about your Black population, 12.2. So that's the percentage of students we have. And those were the numbers as of the semester before. But when you look at full-time faculty members, Hispanics, there's only 3.7% Hispanic population that serves them. Blacks, 8.3% as far as full-time faculty is concerned. That's a gap of negative 0.9%, negative 3.9%. And other minorities, only 6.7%. And then if you were to look at the female population, you have 56.7. But when you begin to look at it, there's a great gap between the amount of students we have and students of color, and then those who are mentoring them. Now, one of the things is you got to ask, who are people looking up to in order to help create their narratives? And I'm going to share this as what tends to be a narrative that competes with the narratives of success. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me show you. I guess I need to show you this, and I forgot I had this one. But the close minority faculty gaps with the current level of faculty, the college would need to increase the number of Hispanic faculty by 300%. 300%. The Black faculty by 45%, and other minorities by 18%. That's if we were to try to create, some kind of equity that would allow. So therefore, we were arguing that the paradigm that we have doesn't really necessarily serve the students of color as well as it actually could. And, in fact, I can remember being on, a hiring committee, and, I saw a Hispanic female that I believe had the credentials, but they weren't called. That person was never chosen. And so we ended up getting it, as far as the college need, that wasn't being considered because individuals only looked at credentials. And so therefore what ended up happening is we increased the white faculty population, and the reality of actually trying to help our students of color and recognizing that as a need, I don't know if that ever was really understood and even pursued. But the Hispanic population, 300% would need to change in order to minister. I'm sorry, minister, that's the preacher in me, but to actually serve that particular group. Now, let me share one more thing. I'm going to share you, I just want you to see a narrative that goes on in our world. And I want you to think. One of the things that I've already shown you is that success is attainable. Success is attainable. Some individuals are going to be successful. They're going to navigate the college system. They're going to navigate the world system. They're going to navigate whatever system that's out there. Some individuals will. But I want you to also know that there are other narratives that we have to deal with in education. And these narratives are held by our students. So watch this. So, when individuals begin to matriculate into college, then, I think we have to ask ourselves the question, do we find ourselves being, guilty of maybe even unfair treatment, or not really, um, maybe having biases that we're unaware of? And the question begins to be, what do we do? Do we actually address the narratives that they've created? I mean, that they have, but then also the narratives that we understand. Is part of stereotyping part of our own narrative? And I was just noticing a lot of, and I didn't put this in the presentation, but I was just looking at a lot of the pictures that showed the events that occurred with individuals rushing the Capitol, and as opposed to back and what occurred when the protest for Black Lives Matter happened to be there. And it was a lot of differences in relation to the amount of protection and security that was there. And I'm not trying to get into that. But the thing is we recognize that there are some inequities in our society, and there are some inequities in the system. And we see it with the numbers from our own system at Eastern Florida State College, that there are inequities. And so what we want to do is try to figure out what can we do. Now, the next part of this presentation will be Andrew Forbes, and what he's going to do is he's going to talk about some things. But before I hand it over to Mr. Forbes, I'd like to hear your feedback concerning what do you see as the narratives of Black and brown people in the United States based off of the people that you've looked at and the presentations or the visuals, videos that you've seen. You can begin to give me some feedback now. And you can raise your hand and communicate, or right now, since everybody's silent, everybody can just talk. But I'm kind of curious, what are you hearing as the narratives? Ronald, is that you?
Yeah, I guess I don't even have to say I hear it. That color, people of color, more of a threat, and I'm basing that on the mob, what some people are calling protests, but I say it's a mob, the White House stuff. Even going back to Trayvon and other situations. Just when I see the reaction of people, to the same events, when white folks do it, it's a protest, and there are people who will get behind them and say, "Oh, that's not a threat." Even the Capitol Police kind of leading them out gently, a lot of that. And I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is, if those were Black folks, then they would be treated differently. And I think I even texted that to a bunch of people, right away. There are hundreds of issues going on that day, but the first thing that hit my mind was that context, that this is a different thing.
This is Dorothy. I just want to piggyback on a little bit of what Ron just said, because I agree with him. And when we take that and put that sort of demonization within the context of education, particularly education of our Black and brown boys, it begins at a very early age. It begins in the primary and elementary years of their education, that they are demonized, that they are automatically assumed to be less than, so therefore, why even bother to teach them?
I want to piggyback on what Dorothy said. I've seen research showing it begins even in daycares. The assumption of criminality, inequitable punishment for the same behavior between especially Black children and white children, but also with other minorities as well. I think we all seen those random videos out of elementary schools where a kid gets arrested, right, just for acting out in class, which is just ridiculous, But yeah, I think Dorothy's absolutely right. This begins with kids when they're young, and then it percolates up through. We're looking at high schools because that's what we see before our students come to us. But I mean, this is a national systemic issue in education.
That's true. I actually evaluated when I was in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, evaluated the high school there, looking at their policies for placing students in in-house suspension and suspending, and I began to know it was very disproportionate in relation. They had a very small minority population of Hispanics, Blacks, but when you begin to look at those who are being punished, it was a lot higher. And I think it may be Dr. Woods who has done a lot of research in that area, and it says basically it starts down at those younger years where you begin to see those disproportionate treatments, and actually, the process of punishment tends to be more harsh toward them. But yeah, that's a reality. And so therefore, when individuals come into the college system, there's almost a disdain for the educated to an extent, because that student, they don't think that they're going to get fair treatment, and that student may perceive, and maybe perceive, he can even perceive incorrectly, um, where they believe that other person is, that teacher is, that faculty person or that administrator, and feel that I'm not going to get the fair end of the deal. But there are some other issues. But let any more feedback before we move on, because I think Andrew Forbes is going to talk about some more.
Well, this is Claire. I noticed in the classroom, and noticed especially with Black males, that they are distrustful at first with me. Like you can tell in their demeanor, they have this, I don't trust this person yet. And it takes a little bit more time to be able to gain their trust. While the white students, it's almost immediate, or they just hate you no matter what. But the as far as the Blacks, and I don't really see with Hispanics as much, but with the Black students, I definitely see that, especially the males. The female students, they warm up pretty quick, but the males, I don't know if I'm being prejudiced right now, but that's mostly what I see.
No, I think what you're saying is a reality. To be honest, I that is a norm, especially the Black male, because because of the context and the culture and the narrative that's actually held within them. Now, I started to show a video of someone did a video of 4 African American males who were up in Connecticut attending college, and they all have different contexts. One was adopted, one was another part of the family, but he had strong support to and motivation and in order to do it. But it was for success. They all had their own narratives, but they were in a predominantly white environment as far as the school is concerned, but yet they navigated it successfully. But they really had strong support in order to get through. They had strong support to get through. But anyway, I think Dr. Chen, I keep seeing you light up. I don't see your hand coming up, but yeah.
Okay, my hand's up.
Okay.
I have a question at the beginning that you introduced those. I lost count of it. 6 individuals that successful figure. Some I think may even consider the iconic figure of Black, successful Black. I found not overwhelming majority, but the majority of them has something to do with their career in entertainment and sports. So my question is, because immediately when I look at it successful, the example of being successful is people like you, Dr. J, or people like Andrew, or even people like Dr. Ben Carson. Even though you are not millionaire, billionaire. So my question is, why are in the Black community, they don't look someone else as a role model, and yet they look those rapper, not that they have not contributed anything to society, but just in general, they look at an athlete, they look at entertainment, sometimes even politician as their role model.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you gonna? What was that?
No, you could go ahead, Dr. J. I'll follow up, but
okay,
if you like.
Yeah, because I'm gonna hand it over to you in a second anyway.
Okay.
But I really appreciate you bringing that up, because see, part of the narrative, a lot of young men look to music. They want to be rappers. They want to be entertainers because that's where they see success. They want to be athletes, and so you see them trying to be like Mike. and like LeBron, and they in fact, when I listen to speeches, I see that they are a lot of the black males and are enamored with those figures because that's where they see success. Many are not looking at the Robert Smiths and those who are successful in other areas. Tim Wise, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him, but if you look him up, just Google his name, Tim Wise. He's actually a white American activist. He teaches, I believe, sociology, but he begins to talk about, in fact, I shared it with a group in one of the workshops that we did. And he was making the statement. He says the reason that white America has a lot of times negative perceptions is because the only people of color they really see are those who are extremely successful. And so therefore there's like an envy, or you see the news and the media highlighting individuals who have committed crimes and that are, so therefore you got these two categories of people. You got individuals that have that are so high when it comes to fame and fortune that they become envious of them, or you have these individuals who are being toted away and wife beaters and handcuffed and put in jail. And so because of that, then it says they develop either an envy or a fear of individuals who are people of color. And so, that was one of the things that he argued. But again, all of these things are part of the narrative. And so as far as education, you don't see a lot of the young black males looking at that. And that's why we have things such as MMI, because what we're trying to do is put educators in front of these young men to help them to be more successful. But again, there's another part that you guys have to participate. And I think that Mr. Forbes is going to go that direction. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start off, Mr. Forbes, with a video. We're going to play this video, and then he's going to take over. But the video, we want you to really pay attention to the narratives that's communicated even in the curriculum that students begin to see. And this video is going to be from a Latin X perspective, but watch the video.
Dr. J, before you show the video, I think Mr. George Chen has his hand up.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see. Go for it.
George?
Oh, no, I think that's for some reason I click on that. But no, I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and play the video, and then Mr. Forbes will take over.
Meet Joe and Gabby. Both grew up in low-income communities, attended the same low-performing high school, graduated with a 3.5 GPA, and are starting their higher education journeys at their local community college. There is one key difference. Joe is white, and Gabby is Latinx. As they begin their studies, they enter an educational system with statistical differences in how students of different races and ethnicities are treated, even those that come from identical socioeconomic backgrounds. The assessment test placed both in developmental English. The counselor recommended that Joe take the Pilot English 101 class with a supplemental learning community, while Gabby stick with the developmental English course, explaining that it's great practice for ESL students. Gabby has been speaking English since birth. Joe loved English 101. Reading books by Tobias Wolff and Jeanette Walls that tackled issues affecting low-income white communities resonated with Joe. Gabby related to some of the assigned essays, but felt that none really spoke about the Latinx experience. This puzzled Gabby. More than half the students in the class are Latinx. Surely the instructor could have chosen some Latinx authors. And to make matters worse, When the class discussed the only essay by a Latinx author, the instructor turned to Gabby and asked, "What do you think, Gabby?" Out of the top 100 texts assigned in English classes at higher education institutions across the country, 88 are by white authors, 10 by Black authors, and 1 each by a Native American and Latinx author. Joe felt at home at college. The instructors were supportive. Most were white like Joe, and their educational experiences matched Joe's. But Gabby noticed that most of the Latinx adults were clerical staff and groundskeepers. Few were on the faculty, administration, or on the walls in portraits. Faculty of color are underrepresented in higher education. Gabby and Joe both showed interest in becoming engineers. But when Gabby expressed that interest, a counselor suggested Gabby look into the HVAC program. The pursuit of STEM degrees disproportionately favors white students. 5 years later, Joe transferred to the flagship state university. Gabby is still at the community college, credits shy of completing a degree. The odds are in Joe's favor. In fall 2016, UC Berkeley, for example, admitted 1,138 white and 713 Latinx transfer students from the California community colleges. At the Center for Urban Education, our research shows that the disparity in their college experiences are manifestations of institutionalized racism. We have found that higher education's mission to provide all students with equal educational opportunity is often stymied by taking for granted, presumably race-neutral policies and practices that in reality confer unearned advantages to white students like Joe and compound disadvantages for racially minoritized students like Gabby. Left unexamined, these policies and practices perpetuate racial inequities.
Mr. Forbes.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I would actually like to piggyback on a few ideas that were actually mentioned. And this particular video is extremely important in terms of choices, in terms of what college students see. Item number one, as Dr. J said earlier, narratives have the ability to withstand the test of time. And if we're operating under that premise, if we believe that is true, once students walk into the university, and I'm using the term university extremely broadly in terms of the community college, the junior college, and the four-year university, I think we have to take into consideration that one, they've been conditioned in some way, shape, or form to believe that they're not a priority. And quite frankly, they've been taught fear. If he or she doesn't look like you, be aware. And even if so, still be aware. And these are the challenges that, I will say this honestly, that our students are actually bringing into the classroom. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the presentation. But if I can say this to you, if I can actually raise this challenge to you, this is a question that I've thought about for many years, and I still haven't grasped it firmly just yet. And I see that Dorothy's actually made a comment in the chat area, which I will address in a few moments. But one of the questions that I do want us to think about right now, and please feel free to give me some feedback. What can educators do to promote inclusiveness in the classroom through our curriculum? Because if we're operating on the premise of advertising, the students are taking our classes for credit, which is needed. How can we actually make them feel as though they belong here? Instead of the idea of saying, you know what, if you want to be successful, become a basketball player, become someone like Jay-Z, which the chances are very slim. And they may not be aware that there are other avenues of success. But again, we have to keep in mind, as Dr. J said earlier, it's what they see. It's who they see in terms of the definition of success. But again, I'll ask you the question, what can educators do to promote inclusiveness in our classroom through our curriculum? Please feel free. What do you think, everyone?
That's a very good question, Andrew. And I think I feel as if I have an advantage because I teach the humanities and I teach, composition, both the developmental and the college level. And with that, I have the opportunity to bring in diverse voices. So I'm always seeking, um, you know, maybe, for example, in composition, I'm always looking for, again, diverse voices. I don't want my students to just read, pardon this, dead white men or read about dead white men. I want them to be able to see themselves or at least be able to identify with others through literature. And so that's one way, just bringing in diverse voices, something maybe that they haven't read. It doesn't have to be the canon. It doesn't always have to be the canon. We can step beyond that because there are so many other voices that our students haven't heard and they need to hear.
Dorothy, I completely agree with you. And if you would allow me to piggyback on that idea, I would make the argument that the canon is changing right now, but the old canon is outdated in some way, shape, or form. We have many African American, Hispanic, other minority authors that deserve to be studied in the university. And if I could be frank, they're not.
Hey, it's Jessica. For those of you who don't know, I'm in sciences, biology. So I think, Andrew, you and I have talked about this before. One thing that you can infuse into a biology course, especially to include curriculum that appeals to specifically Black students, is the discussion of sickle cell anemia. It blends beautifully into in Bio 1 because we're talking about protein structure and genetic variation and mutation and natural selection, which all played a role in increasing the frequency of this particular trait in individuals of sub-Saharan African and Southeast Asian descent due to interactions with malaria. But another thing that's more, I think, applicable broadly, something I started doing this last semester, I'm teaching fully online still, for my discussion boards. I was never a fan of discussion boards, but I have to include something to have the students interact with each other in an online course. I have a few discussion boards throughout the semester about careers in biology. So when we get to biochemistry and macromolecules, I have them look for careers in biochemistry and, talk about what they are and what they do. And if it's something that they would be interested in and why or why not, just to kind of get my students to start thinking about the fact that there are so many different things you can do in biology and try to get them to think, is this something I could do? Right? Is this something for me? And I'm hoping that will encourage students who wouldn't traditionally think, oh, yeah, this is something I could do, to actually really start giving themselves that little seed of thought that this is achievable, this is an option for me. And in my responses, I always make sure I encourage any student who shows an interest. You really have to watch yourself about what you encourage and discourage in students, right? Mm-hmm. We've all had a student who tells us, I want to be a nurse, and is just bombing your course, and you think, okay, maybe that's not realistic, but I would never say that to them, right? Because there are people who overcome those challenges, who come back and take the course again and end up doing really well. So I think getting your students to think about what they could do in your field, if it interests them, or even if it doesn't, just, hey, what are some possibilities out there? I think that's a good way to get them to make that personal connection with the content, to reflect on themselves.
You're perfectly right, Dr. Schrader. And if I can add to that, when you said that, two words came to mind and I had to write them down: dream and growth. I think in some way, shape, or form, we have to allow our students to actually dream, or at least see the possibilities, or that possibilities are endless, no matter the current situation. Because in some way, shape, or form, every single one of us in this room, we've all faced challenges, and we've overcome those challenges. And our students who may not have the life experiences just yet or enough, those challenges that we faced, their challenges that they're facing may be the stumbling block that actually stops their progress. And hence the reason why later on in this presentation, I talk about mentorship being extremely important, but I will get to that particular point later on. Anyone else before I move on?
You know, as you were talking about curriculum, it just reminded me of when I grew up. I had to take Oklahoma history, and the teacher was a Caucasian male, older man. He probably was in his 50s or 60s. And the way that he would punish us in the class if we talked or anything, he would put us on the hanging tree. And so we would have to write, like, I will not talk 100 times, and then he put it on what he called the hanging tree, and he had a little noose, and he would, put it in the noose. And I just remember learning history. All the reading was about the, white settlers that came in, and then about the Native Americans that came in, and that was it. I didn't learn anything about Tulsa and Black Wall Street until I moved away to Alabama and started pursuing my, other studies and doing research on my own. And I just thought it was really interesting how that me being from Oklahoma and Tulsa's like an hour and a half from where I was, that I'd never heard of Black Wall Street, and that the first terrorist act where someone was bombed actually occurred right in the state that I was a part of, but yet I took Oklahoma history. So a lot of times, again, the curriculum just doesn't reflect what it should.
And that's perfectly true. And it's sad, Dr. J, that you, at a young age, experienced that, because I can only imagine if you didn't have the support that you've had, what other avenues may have become available to you. So hence the reason why relationship narratives are so important. And Dr. J, I would like to show the next slide. Everyone, if you can take a moment or so, can you please look at this image that's given to you and tell us, what do you think? Just tell us, or tell us, what do you see? First and foremost, what do you see?
This kid is sad and maybe has given up for the day.
Okay.
Because, it shows that the white kids, being quote unquote diligent, and the Black children not connected. So they're not feeling some connection.
But why can't he also be seen, and I see the subtitle, The Problem of Victimization, but why can't he also be seen as, I'm done, I've finished my work. These guys are
cool. Oh, wow.
Why can't he be seen like that?
Thank you, Dorothy.
Or that he's thinking.
Yeah.
He's thinking about the problem at hand. Yeah, you're right.
Excellent. Thank you for the turning my head around.
I have the same initial, like he looked sad to me. That was what I thought. This kid looks sad. But you're right, Dorothy.
And at first glance, it does look that way. But in addition, or at the same time, it seems as though, yes, he could be concentrating on an issue or at a problem. And if you take a look at the background, I don't know if you can see the young lady somewhat towards your left. She seems to be engaged. Did everyone get that impression as well?
I see them both as disengaged.
Looks like she's looking elsewhere, so I think that she's not really connected.
Okay.
Or the daydreamer. That was me in school. I already knew what they were talking about, so I just sit there and look out the window and daydream.
Our discussion reminds me of something, I'm paraphrasing, something that Toni Morrison once said about Black women, that if we're not smiling, kikiing, we're assumed to be angry and bitter.
Ooh, that is powerful.
I was thinking she's the Instagram generation and she saw the camera.
I was just listening to three Black women talking, and they were describing the color, the color continuum among light-skinned and dark-skinned Blacks. And she was saying, if you're a dark-skinned woman, then a lot of times individuals will automatically say, well, she's angry, she's tough, and she's so is that echoed what I just read or actually ran into last night.
And also, if I could piggyback on that idea, this image can, and please feel free to chime in, illustrates the whole concept that every student is basically learns differently. So we solely can't go based on what we see with our two eyes, because our eyes, or quite frankly, looks can be deceiving. And I can't help but actually focus on this young man who's at a young age. Well, there are many different possibilities. He's concentrating on the problem, he's daydreaming, or he seems disconnected. And let's just go with the whole premise, just for conversation's sake, that if he is disconnected from the classroom, why? If this is the case, and the key word, if.
I had this student right the semester we had to close down for, no, the semester before we had to close down for COVID. He, black male, he would come into class, he never would look up. I mean, the whole time, and he just seemed totally disengaged. It seemed like he never would participate. And my strategy is that I would not call him out on it, definitely in public. And I really didn't even call him out in private. But what I would do is in my lecture, and sometimes I'd figure out how to bring him into it and make a statement to him while I'm talking, and he would answer and he would respond. And I kept on going. And so I never would make him feel bad about how he wasn't engaging me. But then when that guy got up and started doing his speeches, guy was an awesome speaker, did a great job, and he would be engaged the whole time, but his behavior made me feel that he wasn't. But instead of me taking it and trying to correct him, I never did that.
Yes, and if I could piggyback on your idea, this is where, as human beings, we all carry different scripts. And this young man, he has scripts. Those scripts may be misunderstood or misinterpreted as not being interested, but as Dorothy pointed out correctly, he could be engaged. He could be thinking about a particular idea, and this is just how he learns. And I can't help but actually think in some way, shape, or form that the university sometimes, not necessarily our classrooms, but classrooms in general, don't take that into consideration. If you're simply not looking at the professor with your notebook and pen in your hand, you're not interested. So why are you here? And that's something that we need to actually guard ourselves against in some way, shape, or form. What are you thinking, everyone?
I think this comes back to implicit bias with students in general. I think we all have ideas in our head of what student body language means. We're always trying to understand student behavior, right? Like, why is the student doing that? And then, of course, we inherently try to project what we think is happening. And I think it takes time and compassion and self-reflection to realize it's not always about you. And I know I've been progressing on this more, where I realize, our students are extremely diverse psychologically too, right? Yes. And behaviorally. So for example, I had a student last spring. My classes, when I was on campus, they're doing a lot of work together, right? I'd give them problem sets or activities to work on to work with the material. And I had one student, you could tell when he was getting frustrated, he would just get up and walk out of the room for a few minutes. And then he'd come back. And I have official break in the class, but otherwise, I kind of expect him to be there. And one time I said, hey, everything okay? I've noticed you're feeling the need to get up and walk out. And I'm just really frustrated with this. And I think I realized eventually, I'm pretty sure he was on the spectrum, because you could tell like when he had enough of interaction with people and just could not engage. And I think we need to be more aware of those things, that, there are students that are like that. And is it really going to harm their success if they have to walk out of the room on you? Because my first semester teaching, if someone got up and walked out of my class, I would have been insulted. I would have thought, well, this student doesn't care. And I think we have to realize that there are a lot of factors at play. And I certainly have known colleagues who would never get it and were infuriated if a student walked up to the front desk and used the stapler while they were talking. Those are the faculty I think are going to be the most problematic within the college. That one's gone now, but yeah, I think it's bias. And then when you compound that with another variable like, you know, differences in ethnicity between instructor and student, it becomes a bigger issue for the student in terms of their experience.
That's right.
That's right. Okay, everyone. Dr. J, can you move to the next slide, please? I thought this quote was relevant, given that next week, Martin Luther King holiday. It reads, "Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." I'm just going to throw it out there. What does that quote mean to you in general? What do you think Dr. Martin Luther King is actually saying or referring to? Just your thoughts. Or any ideas? Because when I think of it, I think of awareness. I think of the word responsibility. But what do you think, everyone?
You know what, man, I want to say something and I'm afraid, but I'm gonna say it anyway.
Yeah, say it.
I'm just looking. Yeah. I'll be honest. I'm looking at where we are politically in our world, and I have never seen as much ignorance of false people responding to false narratives, and then also actually being in denial of situations that really seem to be clear. And because all you have to do is just really observe. And so I think, like I said, nothing in the world is more dangerous. And we just saw, we just saw it.
We just saw
sincere ignorance
yes.
and conscientious stupidity. We just saw it.
Glad you said it.
Anyway, I'm finished.
I almost wonder too, like when I think of the ways you could interpret that, I know there's an issue with the well-meaning, unintentional microaggression, right? So I'm aware that Martin Luther King Jr. had a huge issue, especially at the time with the vast majority of white liberals, because of the well-meaning, "Oh, I'm your ally and I don't see color," phrases like that, right? Which almost dismisses the problem, right? I'm not part of the problem. I'm with you. That idea that you can be sympathetic to a cause but still be a part of the problem.
You know, I cried. I would engage people that I grew up with who considered friends. And I remember I just wanted to talk to a person that was not a person of color, but I thought that sympathized really well and understood the situation. So I remember, since I'm on the CTE, I called and talked to Michelle Mason, simply because I'm just impressed with some of the things that she's done in relation to actually making this stuff that we're doing now available. But, I just cried because I could look and see that some people, I don't know, I think they were sincerely ignorant. Looking at them, I'm thinking, man, can't you see yourself? And I would engage them and interact with them in a very positive way from a Christian perspective as much, and it's just like people are just, I don't know if they're ignorant or they just really ignoring reality, but anyway, I need to get off of that. I'm gonna leave that one.
But you know what, Dr. J and everyone, I think that's extremely important to actually point out. And here's the reason why. Student lives do not stop when they enter the university physically. It just doesn't stop. Life happens outside of the university. What does that mean? Our students see what's happening out there. They saw what happened last week. In some way, shape, or form, depending on the population, they will bring those scripts or those beliefs to the classroom in some way, shape, or form, whether it's implicit or explicit. So please do not think as though the university is immune from what's happening in a greater society today, because it's not. And Dr. J, if you can go to the next slide for me, please. This quote, I think it speaks volumes. Awareness is the greatest agent for change. And if you can think about this for a brief moment, first and foremost, we have to be aware of something, or something is wrong, or something that needs to be changed. Without that awareness, I hesitate to say this, but I will say this, we individuals may continue in a sense of ignorance, or even not knowing, or even actually excluding voices that don't match our criteria or match our culture. What do you think, everyone?
I think, and this is me speaking up ironically, that I need to learn to listen more. Like at meetings like this, I am making myself talk on the board because if my awareness is important, I'll only get it by listening. So I'll turn off my mic now.
Oh no, Lisa, no. I want you to actually contribute to the conversation, because as educators, we're at the forefront. We
Oh,
see
you
our
know
students
me,
every
I'll
single day.
always contribute, but I'm also that, in a way, I'm that, white privileged voice that automatically thinks I have the right to speak up. And I mean, I only know this by being made aware of it. So I'm not, you all make me certainly very comfortable to speak, but I just wanted to say this slide really affects me, because the way I become aware is by coming to these meetings and listening. So, no, Andy, you didn't make me feel like I couldn't speak. I just wanted to say that and turn off my mic.
One of the issues with implicit bias and that individuals are having is, they say that even though sometimes we're aware, we still find ourselves functioning with, rote behavior. We still may not necessarily actually change, but and that's one of the problems that, like I said, is in that literature, is does awareness actually cause people to change their behavior and change their responses, their implicit responses? And that's a challenge. But I'm still an adherent to, I believe awareness is the beginning of change. I think that when one is aware, they actually can learn more about themselves to bring about change.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's necessary, but not sufficient.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at that word awareness, I two things come to mind. First of all, it's about truth telling, right? I mean, if you want to become more self-aware, then you have to be open and receptive to perhaps all the things that you think are true about yourself, but they actually aren't. They are not. And digging deep and learning the truth about ourselves, that's very hard. People don't always want to accept the parts of themselves that they don't see, but others do. So awareness is about truth telling, right? It's about truth telling. And so when you begin to tell the truth, then you recognize that there has to be some sort of change.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I'm going to piggyback on the last handful of statements. And I know it's a good quote and I like it, but I think awareness has to be fleshed out a little bit. I would go more with what you said, Dorothy, about truth telling, and particularly with the idea of empathy. maybe being the greatest agent for change, seeing things from somebody else's perspective. You know, not just, not just hearing the issue, understanding the issue, but entering into that other world. I guess I can say entering into another narrative, right? And that would go with the title better.
Ronald, I completely agree. And I think what I'm hearing overall is that we have to put ourselves in our students' shoes to actually understand where they're coming from and how we can actually lead them to their particular goals as well. Dr. J, can you skip the next slide and go to the last one, please? And I know I'm running against the clock, but I wanted to actually discuss a few solutions in terms of how we could actually make our classrooms or even the college or even the university as a whole more inclusive. First and foremost, an introduction to resources. This week alone, I've had a number of students ask me, hey, where's the bookstore? Where's financial aid? And as fresh as, educators, even students who have been here for a while, it seems pretty easy. Yeah, it's there, X, Y, and Z. But to those who are actually just new to the experience of actually being in college, it can be terrifying. And I don't know what the vision is in terms of how the information is actually shared with students before they get to the college, but I will say this, it might be important, it might be useful for us to actually as educators point students in the right direction the very first week, so that way we can set the tone of the remainder of the semester. Mentorship. I actually want to show everyone or show you a picture of someone. I don't know if you can see him. Okay, it's not going to work. Okay, it's not going to work. But Mark Wisniewski, who's a novelist, published novels, he was my Comm 1 teacher from LaGuardia Community College in I won't mention the year. But to this day, I still keep in touch with him. I still pick his brain for ideas, challenges that I may be going through. Like, hey, can you please give me some advice? Thank you, Sir George, that I'm still a baby. Thank you. And it's been an experience because this man has been my mentor for over 20 years. We have that relationship where I can call him, I can text him, and vice versa. And our students need that, because remember, they're coming into college, they're coming into the university, they may not know anyone, and it can be intimidating. So that developing that relationship or even a wave or a smile can mean the world to an individual. I know that most of us, if not all of us, in some way touch on the learning labs and speaking to advisors when assistance is needed. I will say this from experience. I teach developmental writing, and the very first week before this pandemic hit and basically changed the structure, I usually walk my students to the academic support center physically, have them get accustomed to that particular space, so that way, if they ever need assistance and I'm not available, they feel comfortable enough to go to someone or go to another space. They see that familiar face where, okay, I know this person, I can ask for assistance. And the next point is prepare for enrollment for the following semester. This is a vision, or this is something that I've been trying to actually implement, especially for my developmental writing classes, where one of the advisors would come in the last week or so, the last 2 weeks of the semester, talk to the students, get them registered for the next class. So for instance, after they take and pass developmental writing, their next step is to take English 1 or Composition 1. They don't have to wait a semester or 2 or 3 to register for that class, which just by listening to students' narratives, that may be becoming the case, especially with the math people. And I don't know if there are any math people in this meeting, but that might be something to think about. And last but not least, this one is personal, at least to me. On the Palm Bay campus, when AP Michael Cador was here, I invited him to speak to all of my classes so that way they can see a familiar face. They can see an administrator who's engaging, who actually wants the student to be successful. And that might be an idea that you may want to implement on your campus or for your classes as well, just to actually make students feel more comfortable in that space. And yes, that, okay, I do belong at Eastern Florida State College. I can succeed. Everyone, what do you think? Comments, feedback?
I think that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, George.
No, that was me. I was just gonna say that, I really like, the things that you're doing, and I think it does. Our goal is to help them have a sense of belongingness, and when, from the provost and them getting connected with the enrollment services and all of that, that's really positive. Knowing who their advisors are, knowing, being introduced to all of those resources, that really helps them to have a sense of belongingness, especially when they see someone taking an active role in helping them, because that does give them the feeling that I belong here.
I like the idea of advisors, and I just learned just yesterday that we have academic advisors as well at the college, not just the people that that students go to register, for their classes, but we have a group of individuals who are academic advisors in the sense that they, I don't want to call it a mentorship because I don't think that's the purpose, but these are people that they go to not just to, again, register, but to really talk about their academic success at the college. So that's a resource that I didn't even know about, and I've been here for a very long time, and it's probably something new, but it's something definitely that I'm going to encourage, particularly my my developmental students, so that they have a place and a space and someone that they can talk to about their academic progress at the college. And it's not just for registration, because we all know that the advisors are just swamped with registering thousands of students, and so they don't have the time to invest in sitting down and actually going through, for the next 2 years, this is what you need to do, and this is how you need to do it. So again, it's about resources, and it's a resource that I'm going to begin to share with my students.
Andrew, you're muted.
Yeah, I can't hear you, Drew.
No, I was saying thank you so much, Dorothy, for sharing that. Thank you. I appreciate it. I think there was one other person.
I see where Lisa, she's saying, why don't we know more about academic advisors, and how can we, I lost it.
How can we find out more?
There it is, yeah.
Lisa, I think we could all agree that's an issue college-wide, where we just don't know much about the staff side of house and the resources in the college for our students. And I think, I can't know if I speak for everybody, but for me, I learn things as I go, right? So I learn about a resource available to students as I go, or if I hunt through the website, sometimes I'll find stuff. Like there's a whole page on the website about tips for becoming a better online student because of the fall transition. The Career Center is another awesome resource that I've started explicitly mentioning to my classes, especially whenever a student indicates they're interested in doing something. Hey, have you talk to the Career Center? They have some great stuff. Or I'll do informal advising sometimes in a class, because I see so many students misadvised whether they want to go healthcare or MD or science. A student wants to get an MD and they're being told to take our anatomy and physiology, which is wrong. So I end up talking about this stuff all the time to our students. And I think we always have to start infusing that a bit more. And part of it is get to know your students. If you're just lecturing the whole class period, you don't know your students. Right. The benefit of coming to Eastern Florida is that we have small class sizes. I'm wondering, I know we all heard the speech from Dr. Fletcher at Welcome Back, and I get the impression, I think most of us are getting the impression that our college is looking at a pretty big restructuring in the future. I don't know if you guys got that impression. I certainly did. And he's been talking a lot about
restructure in terms of what?
I think he's looking to do a dean structure. I mean, like the whole administrative side, just the way, if you look at something like Valencia or St. Pete's, I think he's looking to really change up how department chairs and provost and associate, like I think he's looking to restructure all of it. But he's also been talking about professional development quite a lot. And I know he's been talking about it in the union negotiations. I think he wants a more formalized structure for workshop series. And one thing that would be great is to have workshop series about, like we have these workshops, but they're competing with 6 or 7 others, right? So if there's an incentive for faculty to complete an entire series, and certainly I think there should be for something, of this nature, right? To improve success for our students, especially our students who are in disadvantaged groups, that's how you spread that awareness, right? That's how you get the faculty that should be hearing this stuff.
Yeah, Andrew, this is George. Andrew and I would talk about this issue a lot, and I think we both agree that we need to have more workshop like that. And Lisa was in a meeting that our Dev Ed cluster meeting, and she heard what I say. I encourage everybody, instructor, coordinator, and they all participate in workshop like today. And then the other thing I want to add is when it comes to the student advising, I think I don't know how many of us know that we have MMI representative on each campus. I believe that each campus we have 2. I think these mentorship or these activity need to be encouraged. I know I'm walking on the fine line of mandatory, but I would strongly encourage faculty to encourage your student to get involved, to get in contact with those representatives. I think that's I know classroom we can do a lot, and that's why I'm here to learn how can I change my behavior, change my instruction that would be more inclusive or even more friendly to the minority student. But I think the mentor, I think that's probably is where everything will work better than in the classroom environment.
That's right. Andrew, I think our time has come to the end. It's actually 11:02, and I actually texted Michelle Mason and I said this workshop is off the chain, and I put 3 smiley faces. I mean, the interaction has been awesome, guys. You guys have really, just have given an enlightening conversation, and I think it's going to be productive. I really do. I really believe it's going to be productive. Andrew, I appreciate you partnering with me, or me partnering with you, whoever we did. We did it together. We teamwork, bro. That's it. Teamwork.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Anyway, I don't know how, I guess we're gonna email you feedback forms. I'm not sure how that works, but I believe we should. I know I have a sheet that I need to turn in with the attendance. I know all of that is something that I need to do. And we have recorded everything. And so therefore we've gone 2 minutes and 12, 2 hours and 12 minutes. So we're going to turn that off in a little bit, but we just want to thank everyone for coming to this. And we just encourage you to continue to dialogue with one another, dialogue with us, and help us to be more informed so that the next workshops that we do will help individuals even to another level. hopefully, if you could think of anything that we could do to strengthen this one, anything that we maybe should remove or spend less time doing, let us know. Please let us know.
Please.
And thank everyone for attending. Andrew, would you like to say anything before?
Yes, thank you so much for spending part of your morning with us. I greatly appreciate it. I know Dr. J appreciate it. If it's not too much at the moment, I definitely want to acknowledge one of our provosts, provost who passed away recently, Dr. Ethel Newman. I must say that she's been instrumental, was instrumental to this college, and especially for me, because she was my first supervisor on the Palm Bay campus. So, I mean, may she rest in peace. But again, I have to acknowledge her in this particular meeting.
Yes, yes.
Same answer. I started with Ethel. She was a great boss.
Yes, yes, so true.
She was wonderful with us, and she was professional, and she always, she was on top of everything. She made sure things got done when they needed to get done. She was fantastic.
Yes.
And always supportive.
Definitely.
I totally agree. Thank you, Andrew, for mentioning this.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You guys have a great one, and enjoy your holiday.
All right, have a good one, everyone. Have a great week.
Thanks, you too, guys. Great workshop.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
I need to turn the, let me see if I can turn the video
Dr.
off.
Kathy?